The unseen sky, red tails against the storm. The dream that couldn't be grounded. The Alabama sun beat down with an unforgiving intensity, baking the red earth of Tuskegee Army Airfield. It was 1941, and the world was hurtling towards its darkest hour, yet here, in this segregated corner of America, another battle was being fought, a battle for the right to fly. For generations, the sky had been a symbol of freedom, a boundless expanse where the spirit could soar unburdened. But for Black Americans, even this ultimate frontier was shackled by the invisible chains of prejudice. They were told they lacked the intelligence, the courage, the very genetic makeup to command the sophisticated machines of aerial warfare. They were told they couldn't fly. Yet, a dream, tenacious and defiant, took root. It was a dream nurtured by the likes of Captain James Ace Coleman, a man whose gaze held the quiet intensity of a storm gathering on the horizon. Ace, a natural leader with a sharp mind and an even sharper wit, had spent years honing his skills in civilian aviation, only to be met with closed doors when he tried to enlist. They said I was too good for the ground crew, but not good enough for the cockpit, he'd often quip, a wry smile masking the deep frustration. But the establishment, under mounting pressure and the undeniable logic of a nation preparing for total war, finally relented. The Tuskegee experiment was born, a controversial program designed to train black pilots, ostensibly to prove their capabilities, but often viewed by skeptics as a guaranteed failure. Among the first cadets was Lieutenant Marcus Steele Washington, a man forged in the crucible of adversity. Hailing from the segregated South, Marcus carried the weight of his ancestors' struggles in his broad shoulders. His determination was a palpable force, his focus unwavering. He saw the P-40 Warhawk, then the P-51 Mustang, not just as machines of war, but as chariots of change. Every flight, he'd tell Ace, his voice a low rumble, is a sermon. Every landing, a testament. He believed that by mastering the skies, they could dismantle the walls of prejudice on the ground. Sergeant Tyrone "Thunder" Jackson, a mechanic-turned-pilot, brought a different kind of fire. Tyrone had a natural affinity for engines, his hands understanding the intricate dance of gears and pistons better than most engineers. He could coax life out of the most stubborn machinery, and his transition to the cockpit was seamless. His call sign, Thunder, was earned not just from his booming laugh, but from the way he tore through the air, a force of nature. He was the heart of the squadron, his infectious optimism a beacon in the often bleak landscape of racial discrimination. Then there was pilot Samuel "Ghost" Roberts, a quiet, introspective man whose calm demeanor belied a razor-sharp intellect and an uncanny ability to disappear and reappear in the chaos of a dogfight. Ghost was a scholar, a reader of philosophy and poetry, who saw the act of flying as a profound expression of human potential. He often reflected on the ancient myths, particularly the story of Icarus, who dared to fly too close to the sun. But for Ghost, their flight was not an act of hubris, but of necessity, a righteous ascent against the gravitational pull of injustice. "We are not flying towards the sun to burn," he once mused to Dr. Charles Williams, the squadron's dedicated medical officer, but to illuminate the darkness below. Dr. Charles Williams, a man of science and compassion, was the bedrock of their physical and mental well-being. He understood the unique pressures these men faced, not just the perils of combat, but the constant psychological toll of fighting for respect even within their own military. He saw firsthand the resilience required, the sheer force of will needed to overcome the systemic barriers. His clinic was a sanctuary, a place where the pilots could drop their guard, where their fears and frustrations could be aired without judgment. He treated their bodies, but he also healed their spirits, reminding them of the profound significance of their mission. The training was brutal, designed to weed out any weakness, any doubt. They flew endless hours, perfecting maneuvers, mastering navigation, learning the deadly art of aerial combat. But the real enemy often lurked closer to home. They endured segregated barracks, inferior equipment, and the constant, corrosive whispers of white officers who doubted their abilities. "They want us to fail," Marcus observed one evening, cleaning his P-40's machine guns with meticulous care. "They expect us to." Ace, leaning against the wing, looked out at the setting sun painting the Alabama sky in hues of orange and purple. "Then we'll just have to exceed their expectations, won't we, Steele?" He remembered a passage from a letter his grandmother had sent him, quoting from the Bible, a verse about those who mount up with wings as eagles. It was a powerful image, a promise of strength and renewal for those who waited on the Lord. For Ace and his men, waiting meant preparing, training, and believing in a future where their wings would carry them not just to victory in war, but to freedom at home. The dream of flight, once a distant whisper, was now a roaring engine, a collective heartbeat echoing across the airfield. They were not just learning to fly planes, they were learning to fly in the face of adversity, to ascend beyond the limitations imposed upon them. Each takeoff was an act of defiance, each landing a small triumph. The sky, once a symbol of unattainable freedom, was becoming their battleground, their sanctuary, their destiny. They were the first, the pioneers, carrying the hopes of a race on their wings, ready to prove that the human spirit, when fueled by justice and courage, could never truly be grounded. If you believe in the power of determination, subscribe to our channel. The scorching sands of North Africa, specifically Thebes, Egypt, became the crucible for the Tuskegee Airmen. The year was 1943, and the war in the Mediterranean was raging. The Allied forces were pushing against Rommel's Afrika Korps, and every available pilot, every available plane, was desperately needed. Yet, even here, thousands of miles from home, the shadow of segregation loomed. The Red Tails, as they would soon be known for the distinctive crimson paint on their aircraft tails, were initially relegated to patrol duties, ground support, and other less glamorous, less dangerous assignments. The skepticism from white commanders was palpable, a silent, corrosive force that threatened to undermine their morale. Captain Ace Coleman, now leading the 99th Fighter Squadron, felt the weight of expectation on his shoulders. Not just the expectation of victory, but the expectation of proving their worth. He often thought of the biblical story of Gideon, a man chosen by God to lead a small, seemingly insignificant army against a vast, oppressive force. Gideon's army, reduced to a mere 300 men, triumphed through faith and cunning. Ace saw parallels in their own situation, a small, underestimated squadron, armed with skill and an unwavering belief in their mission, facing down not only the formidable Luftwaffe but also the entrenched prejudice of their own command. Their first true combat mission came unexpectedly. A critical Allied convoy, laden with vital supplies, was under heavy attack by German bombers and their fighter escorts over the Mediterranean. The regular fighter squadrons were stretched thin, engaged elsewhere. The call went out, and the 99th was finally given their chance. Ace, Marcus, Tyrone, and Ghost strapped into their P-40 Warhawks, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This was it. This was their moment to silence the doubters. "Remember your training, boys," Ace's voice crackled over the radio, calm amidst the rising tension. "Stay sharp. Fly as one." As they climbed, the sun glinting off their wings, the vast expanse of the Mediterranean stretched below, a deceptive calm before the storm. Then, the enemy appeared, a swarm of Junkers Ju-88 bombers, escorted by agile Messerschmitt Bf-109s. The sky erupted into a maelstrom of gunfire, smoke, and twisting metal. Marcus, Steele, Washington, his jaw set, dove into the fray. He saw a Bf-109 lining up on a P-40 flown by a white pilot from another squadron. Without hesitation, Marcus broke formation, his P-40 screaming through the air, guns blazing. The Bf-109, caught by surprise, veered off, its pilot momentarily distracted. Marcus pressed the attack, his aim true, sending the German fighter spiraling towards the sea. "Got one," he yelled, his voice a mix of triumph and adrenaline. Tyrone "Thunder" Jackson, with his innate understanding of aerial dynamics, weaved through the chaos, his P-40 a blur of motion. He spotted a Ju-88 making a bombing run on a freighter. "Not on my watch," he roared, pushing his P-40 to its limits. He closed the distance, his machine guns spitting fire, raking the bomber's fuselage. The Ju-88 shuddered, smoke pouring from its engines, before plummeting into the waves. Ghost Roberts, true to his call sign, seemed to materialize out of nowhere. He used the sun to his advantage, disappearing into its glare before reappearing behind an unsuspecting Bf-109. His bursts were precise, economical, each bullet finding its mark. He flew with an almost ethereal grace, his movements fluid and deadly. He was a silent hunter, a phantom in the sky. Ace Coleman, leading from the front, orchestrated the defense, his eyes scanning the entire battle space. He engaged multiple enemy fighters, his P-40 dancing through the flak and tracer fire. He was a master tactician, anticipating enemy moves, protecting his wingmen, and ensuring the convoy's safety. He knew that every German plane they shot down, every ship they saved, was a blow against not just the Axis, but against the prejudice that sought to keep them grounded. The battle was fierce, a brutal ballet of death and survival. When the last German plane retreated, leaving behind a trail of smoke and wreckage, the sky slowly returned to an uneasy calm. The convoy was safe. The Red Tails had not only held their own, they had excelled. They had shot down multiple enemy aircraft and protected every single ship in their charge. Back on the ground, the initial skepticism began to crack. White pilots and commanders, who had openly doubted their capabilities, now looked at the Tuskegee Airmen with a newfound respect, if not outright awe. The news of their performance spread quickly through the Allied ranks. They had proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that skill and courage knew no color. They were not just black pilots, they were exceptional pilots. Ace, wiping sweat from his brow, looked at his squadron. Their faces were grimed with oil and exhaustion, but their eyes shone with a fierce pride. They had faced their Goliath, not with slingshots, but with wings of thunder, and they had emerged victorious. The battle for the skies had just begun, but the battle for respect had taken a decisive turn. Their wings had not just carried them into combat, they had carried them into history. Like this video to honor these legendary pilots. The reputation of the Red Tails spread like wildfire across the European theater. From the sun-drenched fields of Sicily to the icy winds over Berlin, their distinctive crimson tails became a beacon of hope for bomber crews and a harbinger of dread for the Luftwaffe. By 1944, the Tuskegee Airmen, now flying the formidable P-51 Mustang, were assigned to escort heavy bombers deep into enemy territory, a mission so perilous it was often called the bomber's graveyard. These were the longest, most dangerous missions of the war, requiring incredible endurance, skill, and unwavering courage. Captain Ace Coleman and his squadron were now seasoned veterans. They had faced the best of the Luftwaffe, and they had not only survived but thrived. Their P-51 Mustangs, sleek and powerful, were a perfect match for the German Focke-Wulf FW-190s and Messerschmitt Bf-109s. The P-51's incredible range meant the Red Tails could stay with their bombers all the way to the target and back, a commitment often lacking from other escort groups. This dedication earned them the profound trust and gratitude of the bomber crews, who began to specifically request the Red Tails for their missions. One such mission was a deep penetration raid on a ball-bearing factory near Berlin, a target heavily defended by flak and a formidable array of Luftwaffe fighters. The stakes were astronomically high. Ace, leading his squadron, felt the familiar knot of tension in his stomach. He thought of Joshua leading the Israelites against the fortified city of Jericho. The walls of Jericho were seemingly impregnable, yet they fell through faith and persistent action. The German defenses, the seemingly endless waves of enemy fighters, felt like modern-day walls, designed to break the spirit and the will. But Ace knew his men possessed a faith in their mission, and in each other, that could shatter any barrier. As they approached the target, the sky erupted. Flak burst around the bombers like angry black flowers, and squadrons of FW-190s and Bf-109s swarmed the formation. "Break! Break!" Ace yelled over the radio, his voice cutting through the din, "Protect the bombers at all costs." Lieutenant Marcus Steele, Washington, flying wing on Ace, engaged an FW-190 that was tearing into a B-17. Marcus's P-51, nicknamed Spirit of Tuskegee, was a blur of silver and red. He outmaneuvered the German pilot, his 6.50 caliber machine guns spitting a deadly stream of lead. The FW-190 exploded in a fireball, its pilot having no chance against Marcus's relentless attack. Sergeant Tyrone "Thunder" Jackson, with his characteristic flair, weaved through the chaos, his P-51 Crimson Fury a whirlwind of destruction. He took on two Bf-109s simultaneously, his superior flying skills and the Mustang's agility allowing him to outmaneuver both. He sent one spiraling down in smoke, then turned his attention to the other, chasing it through the clouds until it too succumbed to his accurate fire. pilot Samuel "Ghost" Roberts, ever the silent hunter, used the clouds and the sun to his advantage. He would appear from nowhere, dispatch an enemy fighter with a precise burst, and then vanish again, leaving the German pilots bewildered and terrified. Oberleutnant Klaus Richter, a veteran Luftwaffe ace, swore he saw a red-tailed phantom that day, a pilot whose skill was unlike anything he had ever encountered. "They fly like devils," Richter would later recount to his comrades, "but they fight like angels." The battle raged for what felt like an eternity. The air was thick with the smell of aviation fuel and cordite. P-51s and German fighters twisted and turned in a deadly dance, each pilot fighting for their life, for their mission. Ace, his own Mustang, Double Victory, riddled with bullet holes, saw a Bf-109 lining up on a crippled B-17, its engines smoking. He pushed his P-51 to its absolute limit, ignoring the shuddering airframe, and intercepted the German fighter just as it was about to fire. A short, sharp burst from Ace's guns, and the Bf-109 disintegrated. The bombers, though battered, reached their target and unleashed their payloads, sending plumes of smoke rising from the factory below. The mission was a success, but the cost was always high. Back at base, Dr. Charles Williams worked tirelessly, tending to the wounded, both physical and psychological. He listened to their stories, their near-death experiences, their triumphs, and their losses. He understood that these men were not just fighting a war, they were dismantling the walls of prejudice, one dogfight at a time. The Red Tails' reputation grew. Bomber crews reported that when they saw the distinctive Red Tails, they knew they were safe. "They never lost a single bomber to enemy fighters," became the unofficial mantra, a testament to their unparalleled dedication and skill. This claim, while debated by historians, became a powerful symbol of their effectiveness and courage. They had not just broken through the enemy's defenses, they had broken through the walls of racial bias, proving that courage and competence were universal. Comment: which Red Tail pilot's story inspires you most? As the war entered its final, brutal stages in 1945, the Red Tails continued their relentless fight across Eastern Europe, pushing deeper into Germany. The landscape below was scarred by years of conflict, a testament to humanity's destructive capacity. But above, the Tuskegee Airmen were carving out a different legacy, one of courage, skill, and an unwavering commitment to freedom. The double victory they sought, victory abroad against fascism and victory at home against racism, was slowly, painstakingly, being forged in the skies. Captain Ace Coleman, now a major, led his men with a quiet authority born of countless battles. He often reflected on the journey, from the dusty fields of Tuskegee to the war-torn skies of Europe. He remembered the biblical story of Moses, leading his people out of bondage, parting the Red Sea to deliver them to freedom. The Red Tails, in their own way, were parting the sea of racial discrimination, their actions creating a path for future generations. Their P-51 Mustangs, with their iconic red tails, were not just warplanes, they were symbols of deliverance, cutting through the prejudice that had long held their people captive. The final missions were often the most dangerous, as the desperate Luftwaffe threw everything they had into the fight. But the Red Tails, honed by years of combat, were more than ready. Lieutenant Marcus Steele Washington, now a captain, flew with a grim determination, his focus sharper than ever. He had seen too many friends fall, too many injustices endured, to falter now. He knew that every successful mission was not just a blow against the enemy, but a step towards a more just world. Sergeant Tyrone "Thunder" Jackson, promoted to lieutenant, still possessed his infectious optimism, but it was now tempered by the wisdom of experience. He continued to fly with a daring spirit, his P-51 Crimson Fury a blur of motion in the chaotic skies. He often thought of the young black boys back home, looking up at the sky, dreaming of flight. He knew their actions were paving the way for those dreams to become reality. Pilot Samuel "Ghost" Roberts, now a captain, remained the quiet, contemplative warrior. His precision in combat was legendary, his ability to anticipate enemy moves almost prescient. He carried a small, worn copy of a book of poetry in his flight suit, finding solace and meaning in its verses amidst the brutality of war. He believed that their fight was not just for physical freedom, but for the freedom of the human spirit to aspire, to achieve, regardless of color. Dr. Charles Williams, now a major, continued his vital work, his clinic a sanctuary for weary bodies and troubled minds. He saw the toll the war took, but also the incredible resilience of these men. He documented their stories, their medical records a testament to their physical and mental fortitude. He knew that their legacy would extend far beyond the battlefield, impacting the very fabric of American society. The war in Europe finally ended. The Red Tails had flown thousands of missions, destroyed hundreds of enemy aircraft, and, most remarkably, maintained an almost perfect record of protecting their bombers. They returned home not as conquering heroes in the traditional sense, but as pioneers who had shattered a racial barrier that many believed to be insurmountable. Their return, however, was not the triumphant welcome they deserved. The double victory was only half won. They faced continued segregation, discrimination, and the painful reality that the country they had fought so bravely for still denied them full equality. Yet, their actions had planted seeds of change that would eventually blossom into the civil rights movement. Their courage in the cockpit had exposed the lie of racial inferiority and provided undeniable proof of Black Americans' capabilities. Major Ace Coleman, standing on the tarmac of a segregated airfield back home, looked up at the sky. The P-51 Mustangs, now grounded, stood as silent sentinels. He knew the fight wasn't over, but a crucial battle had been won. "We showed them," he said to Marcus, his voice filled with a quiet pride. "We showed them what we could do." The legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails, is not just a story of aerial combat, it is a profound narrative of human resilience, determination, and the relentless pursuit of justice. They were told they couldn't fly, but they soared. They were told they couldn't fight, but they dominated the skies. They were told they couldn't break barriers, but they shattered them, paving the way for a more inclusive and equitable future. Their wings carried them to victory, and their spirit continues to inspire generations, a testament to the enduring power of a dream that could not be grounded. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more untold stories of heroes.